Camilla urged the stranger.
You, sir, should unmask.
The stranger, with amusement on his face, replied.
Indeed.
Casilda insisted.
Indeed, it is time. We have all laid aside disguise but you.
The stranger stopped for a moment and considered his next words.
I wear no mask. Signalis is an incredibly compelling story. Taking notes from things like the Silent Hill franchise, Neon Genesis Evangelion, and Kubrick-esque horror, it crafts a truly fascinating story of promises, memories, and fear. The game's story takes place in a galaxy much like our own. In it rages a war spanning the whole known solar system. On one side of this galactic battlefield is the nation of Yuja, an authoritarian matriarchal war machine that resembles and heavily draws from East Germany. The nation's size compared to the greater empire it fights against created a large manpower issue for the nation. As a remedy, the nation created, and please excuse me if I butcher any of the German in this video because there is a lot, Arbeits- und Erziehungsorgan der Nation, or Aeon for short.
Arbeits- und Erziehungsorgan der Nation.
Aeon is shrouded in secrecy. Much of its hierarchy and true purpose are hidden behind black ink. Humans, or as they are referred to under Yuja, Gestalts, worked under Aeon, contributing to the war effort as things like pilots, all working under the nation's Grand Empress. Little is known about this figurehead, except for her involvement with the creation of the Replica, a synthetic Gestalt that makes up the majority of the Yusian war machine. Under the Empress, Aeon create these beings with synthetic minds and personalities, all based around heavily classified templates, and each being placed into classifications based on their roles in the nation's war. For example, in the case of a riot or CQB situation, this replica, referred to as Star, is outfitted with additional ballistic protection and a tactical shield to prevent against these particular threats, as well as being equipped with an EU K508S Einhorn revolver. As the player traverses through Signalis and the Sierpinski facility, they discover various classified files concerning the individual replicas. Despite the replicas appearing as a perfect solution to wartime issues, there contains a section on the known issues of each. These known issues sections each contain a mention of a neural pattern, implying that there remains some man in the machine. This trope in media and its juxtaposition of the perfection of metal with the imperfection in flesh can be seen in various other works, most notably Mamoru Oshii's Ghost in the Shell, a major inspiration for several aspects of Signalis. It is this realization that makes the main character, Motoko Kusanagi, question her own reality and the truth of her humanity. Alas, Motoko is often reassured by her co-workers at Section 9 of her humanity, as they all in some way are part machine, but their human attributes and personality traits continue despite their bodies. Motoko's body can be replaced, but her psyche, or ghost, continue to live on. The film's antagonist, the Puppet Master, makes us as an audience and Motoko question her truths of humanity, despite her human attributes. The Puppet Master is revealed to be an escaped AI construct, who uploads itself into a machine body and begins to wreak havoc. In her final confrontation with the Puppet Master, Motoko is questioned on the difference between it and her, comparing human DNA to a computer program and the two's shared will to live and continue with life, the AI construct makes the "what makes a human" question much more difficult. Signalis very similarly deals with the same dilemma of humanity in a machine. We see all replicas across the mining facility that the game takes place in exhibiting what appear to be emotion. And through various clippings and clues left behind, we get a sense that these machines are more than simply security guards and technicians. Looking through the various dossiers in the Sierpinski facility's replicas, we find notes on their specific purposes and construction. The files tell us that the replicas as a whole are made in part of bioengineered flesh and have oxidant blood flowing through them, making their organic sections indistinguishable from gestalts. What differentiates replica from replica is their frames or mechanical sections, each being tailored to a specific job. For example, the MNHR, or Minarbeit Nukleartechnik Hochsicherheits replica, sports a large mech-esque body for mining and heavy lifting operations, standing at 260 centimeters or 8.53 feet. But beneath the armor is a Gestalt-esque head with skin and a biomechanical skeleton. Sporting a similar head is the KLBR, or the Kommando Leitenheit Bioresonanztechnik replica, known as the Colibri for short. Despite the organic similarity, Colibri's shell is small and light. They stand at only 152 centimeters or 5 feet. This is due to Colibri's function within the Yuuzhan military as a squad controller. Meant to be behind the brute strength of the replica force, Colibris use a form of telekinesis, noted in the game as bioresonance, to influence or command other replicas. These are two examples of the many replicas in Yuuzhan's arsenal, but in the aforementioned dossiers there lies a section about a known issue list with each individual replica. The issue lists aren't a typical, "this part is often defective," or "this part needs constant cleaning." Instead, the issues are almost all mental or related to the individual replica's psyche. In a classified section on the Colibri replica, the dossier states, "Great care should be given to the Colibris. Their neural patterns are very unstable, and their bioresonance module makes them very susceptible to influence from others. Like most bioresonant individuals, Colibris will often subconsciously create an emotional feedback loop, imitating and then broadcasting the emotions of those around them, acting as a sort of amplifier." Throughout Signalis, the player encounters several Colibri units who are infected with the virus spread throughout Sierpinski. When encountered, just as the dossier says, they amplify the degraded thoughts of those around them. The player sees these thoughts as text blasted across the screen, in sporadic intervals. At a point in the game, you can encounter one of these Colibris in the library, sitting slumped over on the ground, in great fear of the degradation of the facility around her. When speaking to the player, she says, "This is the only place I don't have to hear them," implying that the books provide a barrier of sorts, or serve as a coping mechanism to drown out the corrupted thoughts of the remaining infected replicas. Each of the 9 replica types we see in-game have dossiers like Colibris, each with an individual section on the known issues all relating to mental stability. For example, Euler's, or Einfache Universelle Leiche Replika, or the multi-purpose worker bees of the Yuuzhan military, have a strong urge to check their own appearance at regular intervals. RRs, or Allzweck Reparatur Arbiter replicas, function as mechanics and technicians, and are comforted by having access to plants to take care of, ideally colorful flowers or trees. These personified human-esque traits that Yuuzhan labels as issues further blur the line between replicas and gestalts. In a militaristic setting, the use of a mechanized army would be beneficial, as opposed to a human one, due to the fact that these mental issues should be non-existent. These issues stem from the aforementioned neural pattern, a largely secretive process in the game. Evidence and further understanding of this process are provided to us through the ADLR, or Administration Datenverarbeitung Logistik Replika, or ADLER for short. Throughout the game, a lone ADLER unit serves as the main antagonist, preventing the player from finding Alina Sio, a female Gestalt who piloted the ship the player awakes from at the beginning of the game. While it is Adler's job as a soldier of the Yuuzhan military to uphold his post, this unit does it with a particular ferocity that is linked to his administration and love for the facility's head, an FLKR unit. FLKR, or Führungskommando Leitenheit Replika, more commonly known as Falka, are the commanders over the other replicas on the post they are assigned to. With red diamonds adorning their heads, they possess a similar bioresonant or telekinetic power to Colibris. Sierpinski's particular Falke unit had fallen ill at the events of the game, leaving the protection of the facility up to Adler. We see the Adler unit stricken with guilt and fear for the safety and condition of his commander, appearing to kiss the Falke while she sleeps. It is stated in the Adler file that Adler units will usually become very emotionally dependent on their commander. Like the rest of Sierpinski's replicas with known issues, this particular issue is more human/persona trait than it is traditional issue. When the player reaches Rotfront, they can find a computer with several Gestalt medical files. One of these files is of a male Gestalt named Nikolai Nguyen. When compared to the synthetic face of the Adler to Nikolai, the two are eerily similar. Another similarity the two share is their writing jobs. Nikolai listed as a writer, and Adler leaving administrative notes around Sierpinski and writing several logs. It is widely believed but not wholeheartedly confirmed that Nikolai is the neural template for Adler. This would mean that traits such as Adler's emotional longing and dependence on his commander were a persona trait that leaked through from Nikolai and Nguyen's life and mind. This would explain the known issues section of the replicas. Their issues are just what was left behind by their neural templates' past lives as Gestalts. The most important replica in Signalis is the LSTR, specifically the LSTR-512, more commonly referred to as Elster, which is the unit the player takes control of throughout the game. As I mentioned before, this particular replica's goal is to find a woman, her presumed co-pilot named Alina Sio. Going only off of a small photo, we follow Elster as she traverses Sierpinski. The further we tread, and with the assistance of certain artifacts, we realize that reality in some capacity isn't what it seems. We learn from the LSTR, or Landvermessung's Schiff-Techniker Replika known issue dossier, that the LSTR units were chosen for the Penrose program for their adaptability and reliability under long-term isolation conditions. Stoic and reserved, LSTR units have a relatively stable neural pattern. It is best for you to leave it alone and interact with the LSTR unit as little as possible. The LSTR's neural pattern is from a soldier of Venetan origin, so their needs are basic. One notable detail about this dossier is that it directly references an aspect of the identity of Elster's neural pattern, narrowing down what Gestalt is the neural pattern for Elster. The dossier also has some very specific don'ts, such as avoid talking to the Elster unit about the war, do not show or give the Elster unit photographs, especially of soldiers during the war, do not show the Elster unit movies or let it listen to music, do not try to befriend the Elster unit. It seems that the Ujian nation, especially when regarding the Elster unit, wants to ensure personification is greatly limited, more so than other replicas. We see what happens when these orders are disregarded through Ariane Young, the true pilot of the Penrose ship that Elster mistook for Alina Sio. Signalis gradually reveals that Elster, or a past iteration of Elster, was stationed with Ariane Young to assist her in a deep space mission to find suitable planets outside the known solar system. Throughout their time together, the two bonded greatly. Young, as the player is shown through flashback memories and text files, took a great interest in the arts and literature, two things which were largely frowned upon under the Ujian regime. Eventually moving to Rotfront with her aunt, Ariane's life took a downhill turn as she was physically and verbally assaulted by her classmates due to her unconventional looks and interests. This would take a toll on her psyche and lead her to take her mandatory service in the Penrose program. The program was virtually a death sentence, sending a Gestalt and a small replica crew out into the stars to find a point of interest or die in the process, alone amongst the stars. Ariane's decision to join the Penrose most likely stemmed from her inability to form connections with those in Rotfront, which depressed her to the point of willingly accepting this death sentence. Aboard the Penrose, with no one to question or harass her, Ariane found peace, being able to continue diving into her literature and arts. Eventually, Ariane warmed up to the replica aboard, Elster. The two delved into old films, Ariane shared literature and artwork with Elster, completely going against the replica dossier's warnings. It is perhaps due to this influx of information and media Elster received aboard the Penrose that she initially mistook Ariane for Alina Sio, who in reality is a long-dead Gestalt soldier and veteran of the Venetan War. It is likely that due to this consumption of media Elster received, her new neural template began to remanifest inside of its new metallic shell. The veteran Gestalt whom Elster received her neural template from is unknown, but many signs point to it being a Gestalt named Lilithito, another veteran of the Venetan War. Veneta was another casualty in the war between the Empire and Yuja. once known as the cradle of humanity, warfare and ordnance turned the once beautiful planet into an ocean world, covered with water and waves. Lilith Ito is seen to have fought alongside Alina Sio. The two can be seen photographed together, and the relationship they shared in its emotional power was strong enough to outlast Lilith, and remain a part of her neural template. The power of bonds between a duo manifested in another life is Elster and Ariane, and this resurfacing of a past long forgotten to even the replica who retained the memories is classified throughout all of Yuja and the replica program as an issue. All preventative measures listed in Elster and the other replicas' discussed dossiers are to prevent the resurfacing of these personalities from their aforementioned neural templates. With all this in mind, what is Signalis' answer to the what makes a human human question? I believe the answer is imperfection, that being what deviates a man from a machine. It was through the various neural pattern experiments and later implementation into Yuja's military that various soldiers or workers under the Yujian government were turned into emotionless shells and the perfect workers for a totalitarian state. Despite this, however, cracks in these perfect soldiers began to show in the form of their original neural templates' emotions shining through. A machine does not get anxious or fall in love, and this is exactly what the Yujian nation wanted out of the replica program, thus creating dossiers covering these emotional leftovers as known issues, meant to be cared for like a machine is maintained. However, the emotional spirit of man triumphs, and love brings a pair together throughout space and time. Despite Elster's deep-rooted neurological dissonance between her current and past self, love prevails through her conditioning and code. Transcending both body and mind, the promise Elster made with Ariane carries her through Sierpinski and beyond, on an odyssey no machine could ever achieve without the imperfect trait of emotion. It is these human emotions, and thus our imperfection as man, that leads us to great things, unfathomable to a being of perfect obedience.